My name is Alyssa, and today I will be talking about how drowsy driving is just as dangerous as drunk driving. So the phrase, "don't drink and drive," has been engraved into our heads. Regardless if it's 2 beers or 2 shots, we have been enforced that no one should drink and drive. However, we rarely hear anyone express the dangers of dealing with exhaustion while you're behind the wheel. It is rare for anyone to say, make sure you're well rested before driving. Drunk driving is frowned upon because people often overlook the hazard that drowsy driving poses. Drowsy driving is a dangerous combination of driving and sleepiness or fatigue. This could result from having little sleep, being on medication, drinking alcohol, or working long hours. According to the National Sleep Foundation, drowsy driving is hazardous because sleep deprivation can have similar effects on your body as drinking alcohol. This brings me to my main point that operating a vehicle while suffering from exhaustion is just as dangerous as drinking and driving. When it comes to alcohol, any amount in the bloodstream can affect our ability to drive. I'm sure most of us have experienced the obvious effects of being drunk. In an article posted by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the effects of drinking alcohol are discussed. Your vision is impaired drastically, which makes it difficult to see clearly or control eye movements. Your judgment is also shifted. When alcohol is in your system, you may not make the right decisions in certain circumstances. A person that is drunk is not likely to stay alert. Usually they are unable to react quickly, which makes them unaware of their surroundings. It is for obvious reasons that driving under the influence of alcohol has been deemed illegal. Now, when it comes to drowsy driving, the effects have similar risks. An article titled "Drowsy Driving, Asleep at the Wheel" states that after 24 hours awake, impairment is equivalent to a blood alcohol content of 0.10%. The effects that people obtain from consuming alcohol are the same dangerous effects that a drowsy person encounters while driving. A review of thousands of crashes from the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety found that drivers were 1.3 times more likely to get into an accident if they missed 1 hour of sleep, and 1.9 times more prone to get into an accident if they missed 2 hours of the recommended 7. This makes drowsy driving just as dangerous as drunk driving. Just like drunk drivers, drowsy drivers have impaired vision, clouded judgment, and weakened reactions. According to Eye Health Northwest, studies have shown that the eye needs at least 5 hours of sleep per night to properly replenish. Alcohol impairs vision just the same as lack of sleep does. Drowsy drivers also do not have fast reaction times, just like intoxicated individuals. This means that it is difficult for them to react if a sudden incident were to occur, like if a car were to all of a sudden brake in front of them. Drowsy driving can also lead to drivers falling asleep behind the wheel. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, an estimated 1 in 25 adults have reported falling asleep behind the wheel in the last 30 days. In the year 2014, a woman by the name Courtney Quinn crossed over to the opposite lane, hitting Jennifer Everett's car head-on. Everett died in the hospital later that day. According to court records, Quinn admitted that she had 3 hours of sleep in the last 36 hours leading up to the crash. Reports also showed that there was no alcohol or drugs in her. They also found text messages in her phone that read, "I am so tired, I'm not going to remember the drive home. This has happened to me before." In fact, on the day of the accident, she was finishing up a double shift and asked her manager if she could leave early, and they denied her request. This was just one of the deaths that has occurred from getting behind the wheel while experiencing fatigue. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates that drowsy driving was responsible for 72,000 crashes, 44,000 injuries, and 800 deaths in 2013. However, these numbers are underestimated, and up to 6,000 fatal crashes each year may be caused by drowsy drivers. Drowsy driving needs to have the same amount of attention as drunk driving. The issue with drowsy driving is that your lifestyle and values do not align with it. In a fast-paced society, with an emphasis on work and long school hours, it is difficult to avoid getting behind the wheel when you are exhausted. It is also impossible to crack down on sleepy drivers because one cannot measure the exhaustion they are feeling like they can measure blood alcohol content. Parents warn their kids about drinking and driving, but what happens when your 18-year-old son drives off an interstate like Kyle Warren did, who fell asleep behind the wheel and died later that evening? Drunk drivers and drowsy drivers pose the same threat to themselves and the people around them. Both experience the same effects that inhibit their driving abilities. These impairments can lead to injuries or sometimes even death. Although the dangerous effects that the lack of sleep has on drivers is often undermined, it is certain that the drowsy driving is just as dangerous as drunk driving. Thank you.
All right, well, the opening sounds like you've got the proposition is the attention device, but it's actually a little bit deeper than that. It's clearly stated and identified in the body of the speech, so I thought that that was fine. The notion that this is equally dangerous to driving under the influence of alcohol, I can see some controversy on that. I do think that you do a little bit to try and show that this is a controversial issue because we have anti-drunk driving programs, but we don't have anything that addresses this particular issue. It largely gets neglected. I think you could use a little bit more information on that part of the argument to show that we really, in fact, have something that's controversial here. What's the things that are missing the most from the speech are the structural things, which means that a lot of the information that you're presenting, it's not useless, it's good information, and I thought that you did an excellent job citing the sources, but sometimes it doesn't build as effectively as a set of arguments as we are leading from one point to the next and arriving at a conclusion. It just seems like it's information that's piling up to support a single conclusion without necessarily having any subdivision, and I think that that makes it a little bit harder to digest. It's certainly going to be harder to remember it all, especially if you're drowsy. So that's going to be a potential issue. None of you came by the office earlier, did you? Okay, good, because that was me asleep at my desk. So that I wouldn't be behind the wheel. Wait, drowsy. Okay. But you have at least 2 or 3 really good examples, a lot of statistical information. You cite authorities for the most part in the presentation. There's some factual data that you're citing. I thought you did a good job. Like on the evidence stuff, everything is really solid. I think the presentation is also pretty good, although there's sometimes when you've got so much information that you have to kind of look at the information instead of paying attention to the audience, but that was a minor kind of thing. Like I said, almost everything is strong. The only things that I thought were problematic was the organizational stuff, and that's something that's mechanical and can easily be fixed. All right, thank you.